What is going on, fellas? And the lady fellas, of course. Guys, welcome back to Just Nuts. Today, I'm doing a little video looking at ahead to Chaos Impact. This is the new core set that's going to be coming out on October 25th, I believe. Yeah, 25th. It's just under 2 weeks away. I think it's like literally 13 days away. But it's a set I'm really excited about. We have every card revealed for this set, names and everything. So I wanted to go through and I want to just do an overall, rating slash review of the entire set. I'm not going to go through every single card because that's terrible. There's going to be filler. There's going to be stuff that Konami put in there that's like not particularly impactful in any way, not just competitively, but like even casual players, collectors probably won't even care about those cards just because they're commons, they're bad commons, they're not even like interesting in any way. So I'm going to stay off of those, but I'm going to stay strictly onto the stuff I think is relevant to what makes the set what it is, good or bad, and so we will go from there. So we're going to start with the new archetypes, or the new to newer archetypes, because that's where we see a lot of support in the set. You see all these tabs. Oh, you can't even see them on the thing, but I got a lot of tabs here. Down all those tabs are there. We got a lot of stuff to get through. Whoa, there we go. So first up, we're going to start with the one brand new archetype in this entire set here, and that is Unchained, formerly known as Hakkai's. This is a really cool archetype based off of link summoning using your opponent's monsters as material. So you just have a couple monsters that have their effect where they just say link summon, but you can use your opponent's monster as one of the materials. So you're just ripping your opponent's monsters off their field, and it's really cool. It's a cool archetype. There's a lot of decks that have been theorized to have synergy with this. People are looking at True Draco Hakkai's or Unchained, like Lair of Darkness Unchained, and I think there's one or two more, but I can't remember off the top of my head. I want to say like Metal Foes Unchained. There's a bunch of them, right? So it's a really hyped archetype. There's like 10 new cards, 3 main deck monsters, 3 extra deck monsters, 2 spells, and 2 traps. Very, very hyped archetype. People think it might be meta, but I'm not sure. I don't think it'll be tier 1, but it might be a cool rogue strategy, and definitely keep a lookout for future support because a lot of people like the artwork and stuff, so that's always a good bet for future support. We already have a card confirmed for Ignition Assault as well. As far as decks that we already have, we're getting more support for. Marine Cess is like the main staple of this because after the first wave in the last core set, the deck wasn't even playable. They just had a couple of cool things, but it wasn't really enough to be a full-on deck. Finally, we're getting a whole new wave of, I think, like 8 cards? Is it really 8? I think we're getting like 8 more cards here. Not all of them are relevant. The field spell is relevant. Blue Tang is like the most important one. There's a couple extra deck monsters, but really it rounds out an archetype that can either set up a towers-like situation and just have a very good resource game. Like very few resources put in, getting a big boss monster and another card. Like really, really low commit cost, I guess, to a play, and you get so much off of it. So that's always a good bet for a competitive deck as well. So Marine Cess, very cool. We get 3 more Tenyi cards here: a Synchro, a Link, and the best, after Vashuda, the best main deck monster for their deck. This is the light one. We had all the other types or attributes before this. He's very good. He just banishes from grave to special summon a Tenyi straight from the deck, which is very good. But locks you into worms, not a huge deal in the deck. The Synchro just is a generic Synchro that just banishes a monster when it activates its effect. Decent disruption. And the Link just wipes boards. Seriously, just wipes boards straight up. It's pretty good. So yeah, Tenyi is very cool. They came out in the last set as well. Next up we have Dream Mirrors. We're getting 7 more Dream Mirror cards. That's a big volley. This was a TCG exclusive archetype that came out in the last core set as well. It was terrible before this. This stuff definitely helps it. They get a boss monster in a fusion. They get some main deck monsters. They get some traps. They get a spell. I think it's 1 spell, 2 traps. But it's pretty good support. I'm not going to lie. It's better than I thought, and I think the deck is truly rounding out a little more to something that could be potentially playable, but we'll have to wait and see. But a very cool deck nonetheless. And then we have some support for some meta stuff. So we get 3 new Salamangreat cards. Lo and behold, more Salamangreat support. This is the main card here out of the support. It's a Link 4. It helps wipe stuff, I believe, right? Yeah. So if this card's reincarnation linked, you just get to destroy all cards your opponent controls. Very, very strong effect, of course. And that's mainly it. Like, if anything, the problem is you'd want to play 2 copies of this, but I don't know if Salamangreat players will make room for this in their extra decks, but we'll have to wait and see. There's 2 other spell cards that were, like, interesting, but I don't think they're really worth playing. Maybe there'll be a spicy tech one of in some players' deck lists, but outside of that, I don't see them being too playable. We have Striker Dragon, and I will go ahead and throw this guy in there too. We also have Starliege Safefares. So these are like Dragon Link support cards. This is a rocket card, but rockets are used mainly in Dragon Link. Like, that's the competitive deck they're used in the most. You can also play him in pure rockets. Feel free to do that if you're a more casual player, but at least for competitive players, Starliege Safefare being a very strong starter as well as like extender, and Striker Dragon being just a really nice piece that you can just make off of any level 4 lower dragon, and it just gets you a free plus to boot sector launch, which is going to let you like grind really well and just have some really strong effects there. Really nice boost. People thinking that this is the boost that'll make Dragon Link like actually tier 1. Like, we've seen some tops here and there, but people think this will be the push it needed to actually jump into like top tier status, but we'll see. Then we move to some legacy support, right? So that was the newer stuff, some meta more stuff, and then we move to some actual legacy support. Older decks that have been sitting there for a long time. People have been wishing for this, and we're finally getting some cool support for them, so that's really awesome. The main one is Gladiator Beach. This is one of the first archetypes ever. Archetypes, like actual archetypes. That was the best deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! At a time, and a lot of people love that deck. A lot of older players will say this is like their favorite deck of all time to play competitively, and now we're getting more support for it. It doesn't make the deck competitive again, but it makes it cool. It can set up boards turn 1. It can do some cheeky battle phase stuff going second. It's really cool, and there's like 10? Isn't there like 10 new cards here? Yeah, really strong Link Monster, really strong Fusion, some nice main deck monsters, some nice spells and traps. Like, really just good stuff all around for them, and it's really nice to see. Just cool. Then we have Aromages, or Aromaseraphy. I think we get 6 or 7 new cards here for them. Pretty cool. We get like a Synchro, 2 main deck monsters, 2 spells, and a trap. And all just helping out the deck. Again, this is never really a competitive deck, but it's a deck that a lot of fans really loved, artwork-wise, and it's just cool. It's plants. You don't really see a lot of plant archetypes. So, and it deals with life points, too. That's always like some reason players love that. And it's a gaining life points deck, not a take your opponent's life points, not a burn deck. So, it has that niche in that respect. So, a lot of people really like this deck, and we're just getting more stuff for it. So, it's really cool. And then the last one here, I'm going to throw Blue Eyes in here. I put Blue Eyes question mark in my notes because it's not technically Blue Eye support, but like, this is like level 8 dragon support. Like, specifically, these 2 cards like are specifically good in decks that play level 8 dragons. And I can't really think of a level 8 dragon deck outside of Blue Eyes, right? So I'm going to go ahead and say these as like unofficial Blue Eye support, Nebula Dragon and Galactic Spiral Dragon. I can't tell you how good these are in the deck. I never played Blue Eyes. I've never really been that interested in playing Blue Eyes, so I don't really know the deck that well and how these cards would synergize with it. But they seem like they could theoretically be pretty good in any like deck that can just pump out level 8 dragons. So keep an eye on these. They're pretty cool. Maybe we'll see some Blue Eye stuff with these cards. Maybe they help it out. And then we have a bunch of like random supports where Konami does this in every core set, more or less, where they like to just throw in a couple cards for like 1 or 2 cards for like a bunch of different archetypes. It's more or less filler, but it's the good kind of filler. It's not filler where it's just random cards that do nothing and are terrible. It's filler in the spec that there's probably a handful of players that love Dino Wrestlers, so why not just throw 2 new Dino Wrestlers cards in this set and then give them a little something to look forward to, right? A little something extra for them in the set, right? And that's exactly what we start with, 2 Dino Wrestler cards. Dino Wrestlers aren't very good, but you know, there's got to be someone that loves them, and 2 more cards, you know, pretty cool. We have a new Voltile card. Again, a very old archetype. Never really saw competitive play as far as I remember. But this is a cool card. It definitely boosts the deck. It helps the deck turbo a little bit more. And, you know, the deck was terrible before. It's a little bit less terrible now. I'll take it. You know, it's cool. Then we have a new Infinitrack card called Brutal Dozer. This card's actually very, very good for Infinitracks. Infinitracks, another deck that, like, it's a newer deck, came out this year, but it still struggles. It, like, doesn't do enough. But this is just one of those cards where you look at it and you're like, this could definitely, like, if they got more support as the years go on, this card could be a huge part of, like, making them a legitimately, like, threatening deck. So I really like this card a lot. Definitely don't sleep on Infinitracks if they keep getting support like this, because this card's very, very strong. The support that I'm looking forward to the most, as far as, like, the random cards thrown in here, is Evil Eyes. I love Evil Eyes. I think they're an okay deck before the support, but I think they actually get a huge buff here. They get a Link 2, which is actually comes up all the time in, like, the way people play the deck now, I believe, with the new stuff. And then we also get a new equip spell, where, if you don't know, Evil Eyes is a deck that just revolves around one equip spell. So having another one helps with consistency, because if you don't have that equip spell, your deck doesn't really do anything. So you need to see that equip spell, and so it adds consistency, and also has an effect in the graveyard that lets you just essentially just trade in any Evil Eye card in hand for any other Evil Eye card in deck. So that's, like, utility / consistency there as well. Pretty cool. I really like the two new cards, and I think they really do buff the deck in a nice way. We have two more World Legacy cards. I mean, we've seen this in pretty much every single core set. We're getting one or two of these new cards. Every single one. I mean, it's nothing crazy. I don't think they're insanely good. I don't really know how insanely good they're. When you have an archetype with so many cards that you haven't really looked into too much, it's really hard to tell how good these cards are. But it's just something to keep an eye on. I know a lot of people, like, really love the lore of, like, the World Legacy, World Chalice stuff. So if you're into that, you might want to pick up this, just so you have the whole thing, like, as a collector's standpoint. We have a random Watt card thrown in here as well. It's actually a pretty good spell card that lets you turbo like a ton of Watt cards from your deck to your hand. It adds Watt cards with different names from your deck to your hand up to the number of Thunder monsters you control with different names. So control 3 different Thunder monsters, search 3 Watt cards, not just monsters. Pretty good. And then also has a banish effect, which is pretty good as well. So don't sleep on this card. I mean, you should be sleeping on Watts because they're not very good, but this card definitely helps. And if they got more support, who knows? Who knows where we could see Watts in the future. And then the last card, as far as the random support goes, I'm going to throw Insects generically in here. This is a random, like, Link 3 that takes any 2+ monsters with different names, and it just, like, quick effect special summons Insects from Grave. Level 4 lower insect monsters from Grave on your opponent's turn, which is pretty cool. I mean, seriously, I think it's a really nice card for, like, any Link insect deck. And maybe all it takes is one archetype. All it takes is one good archetype that's insect to come out, and then cards like this become completely relevant, incredibly relevant. So don't sleep on this card. Just keep an eye out. I believe eventually we'll get a competitive deck for, like, every type at some point in the future. I mean, it may not last forever. It may not be competitive forever, but I think at some point there will be some insect deck that does become good again, and this card could be relevant there. And then we move to some generic cards. So these are cards that aren't really archetypal cards, but they're generic, and I thought they're good, and this is what makes the deck, or the set, good for players or just Yu-Gi-Oh fans that are competitive players but aren't necessarily playing any of these decks. They're not looking to play Unchained. They don't want to play Marine Cess. They are not already playing Salamangreats or Dragon Link, and just none of the stuff after that is really appealing to them. So this is where they get those players to kind of get interested in the set a little bit. First and foremost, we have IP Masquerena. This card is almost a completely generic Link monster that lets you essentially just Link summon on your opponent's turn. It's actually a decent disruption. There's stuff like you can just quick effect Link summon into, like, a unicorn, Nightmare Unicorn, discard a card and spin a card on your opponent's turn. That's not too shabby, right? So I'm definitely a fan of that effect. I think that's pretty good. And I just think it has a lot of utility. It's just a really good generic Link too that a lot of people will be wanting to pick up very, very quickly. Gizmek Yata, the Gleaming Vanguard. This is the next Gizmek card, and we have another one in the next set too that's pretty good. And essentially just lets you it gets itself on field pretty easily, and then it gives you an additional normal summon. It has some restrictions to it, but in the right deck, in like True Dracos or something, this could be a very good card in just helping them turbo out more monsters on field, apply more pressure. Just specific decks. It's a little niche, but it definitely can be a very good card in the right strategy. We have Hop-Eared Squadron. This is I love the artwork on this card. But essentially, this is kind of like the Link monster, except this card is a tuner, and it allows you to quick effect synchro during your opponent's main phase, which is pretty good. I can't really think of too many crazy applications outside of like going straight into Black Rose Dragon on your opponent's main phase to wipe their entire board. That's kind of spicy, but outside of that, I don't really see it doing too much. Monster Express, a pretty interesting card. It lets you target a monster you control and then send a monster from your extra deck to the grave with the same type as that one. So just by itself, it can just send any machine from your extra deck to the graveyard. I don't know if there are great targets for that, but if you're in a deck and you could put other monsters on the field, you have more utility there, more ability to do different combos, send different things, search different cards, whatever. I just think it's fairly generic, and I thought it could be a very good card in the right deck. Just want to keep an eye on it. Luna the Dark Spirit. This card goes in line with a lot of cards we've gotten before. It's essentially just a card that from hand you can banish any dark from grave to special summon it out. It could be an extender in Thunder Dragons, just banishing certain Thunder Dragons from grave, popping off their effects while also getting another body on board. Or just any dark deck that just wants to extend, wants extra cards that help them put more bodies on board. So she could be very nice for that. She's pretty good. I mean, nothing crazy, but just a free body on board. Next up is a very interesting card, because of a specific new card we got fairly recently. Gallant Granite is this new rank 4. It's completely generic, taking any 2 level 4s, and you could attach a material to activate one of these effects. Add any rock from deck to hand, or special a rock from your hand in face down defense position. Now we just got a new card called Nibiru. It's a rock monster, and it's a very strong hand trap. People are theorizing going first, making this guy, detaching, and just getting a Nibiru as part of your combo, ending with Nibiru in hand. Obviously, against the right deck, it can be insane, and against the wrong deck, it's kind of like, doesn't really do anything. But it's just something to keep note of. It's very good for rock decks, and like I said, I expect insects to be good at some point in the future. I expect there will be a rock deck as well to be good in the future, and this card could be a very big part of that. Consistency-wise, utility-wise, however you want to use it, I think it could be a big part. Then we have Firewall Dark Fluid Dragon. This is the staple card of the set, the cover card of the set. It's a first Link 5 we've ever seen in Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's kind of crazy. You need to put a lot of cards into it, including like a Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, or XCs to really make it worth it. But it does just become a generic negate, and so it's kind of like Appaloosa in the fact that a deck that doesn't set up its own negates, as long as it can put out link materials, can just go up, can end in one of those, and still have a legitimate disruption at their disposal. It's a fine card. It takes a lot of materials, just a lot of investment, but it can pay off. So it's just one of those, like it's high risk, high reward kind of thing. A trap card. The only spell or trap in the entire set I think is like actually worth it as far as like generic ones go is Bang Paline, or Boom Paline is the new translation. So you pretty much just target a zone, a monster zone, and if your opponent summons to that monster zone, you bounce that monster and this card back to hand. I really like that because it just loads itself back into hand, and if you can keep your opponent off monsters for that turn, you're just going to set it again on your next turn and do it again. And it can just be a never-ending loop that your opponent is never able to break through, and I think that's so awesome. So Boom Paline, very strong card, really big fan of him. And the last card I'll show here is Desert Locust. I threw this in at the last second. It's an interesting card. So when this card is synchro summoned, the turn player discards a card. So ideally, if you had like Hop-Eared Squadron, you would try to synchro this on your opponent's turn. So you synchro into him, make your opponent discard a card. That's just one more card out of the hand. Obviously, that can be bad. Some decks want to discard stuff, but that's, you take that into account. And then also it has a quick effect during your opponent's main phase. You can quick effect synchro summon again, and this card's a tuner as well. So you could use Hop-Eared Squadron to link into him, discard an opponent's card from your hand, and then use this card with any other level 1 you might have on your field and make Black Rose and wipe the board. Like, it's not crazy, but it's spicy. I thought it was interesting. It could come up in a specific deck. I don't know exactly what, but it's just interesting to me, and I thought it was a cool card that I wanted to note here. That's pretty much it for everything here, guys. I really think this set is really cool. I think there's a ton of support, so it's going to hit a lot of players somewhere, but I don't think it's hitting too many players everywhere, right? Like, I think like you either have one of these decks that you like and you want the support for, but you're not really interested in too much other stuff. As far as the generic stuff goes, it's okay. There's been sets with way better. There's nothing like, there's no generic good cards in this set that are like oh my god, that's insane. Like, everybody and their mother's going to be trying to get their hands on that. Like, there's no infinite impermanence, there's no pot of extravagance or phantasma, there's nothing of that level. I think Masquerade is the closest thing, and I think a lot of people will get that, and I think it's just a smart move for any competitive player, but I don't think it has that meta like aspect to it, competitive aspect to this set. But as far as support goes, there's a ton of good support. I think a lot of players will find something in this set that may not be enough to make them want to buy the sealed product, but you know, you can at least order some singles and at least make sure the set's selling somewhere, some way, right? So I think it's a good set overall. I really do. I don't think it's an amazing set, but I think it's good. I think it's in that solid tier. So, guys, let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know what you're most excited about to get in this set. Whether it's support, whether it's some of the generic stuff, let me know, because I'm interested to see what you guys are looking forward to, what you guys are playing. I just like hearing about it. I'm going to leave it off there, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. And, yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.